I'm standing in a place that feels peaceful, but centuries ago, battlefields like this were scenes of chaos, driven by terrifying ingenuity. The ancient world wasn't primitive. Their weapons were marvels of engineering and psychological warfare, shaping history for centuries. Today, we'll explore 10 ancient weapons that changed everything. Imagine a 7th century naval battle. Suddenly, Byzantine defenders unleash Greek fire, a liquid flame that burns even on water. Launched from siphons or thrown in grenades, its formula was a closely guarded secret, lost to history. Likely petroleum-based, it clung to ships and men, igniting terror and chaos. Greek fire gave Byzantium naval dominance for centuries, acting as both weapon and deterrent. It was in every sense the napalm of the ancient world. Before tanks, the chariot was the ancient world's mobile weapons platform. Fast, deadly, and revolutionary. Used by Egyptians, Hittites, and Chinese, chariots combined speed and firepower, breaking enemy lines and morale. Their impact forced armies to rethink strategy and develop new defenses. For over 1,000 years, the chariot ruled the battlefield. If chariots were fast attack vehicles, war elephants were the heavy tanks, massive, armored, and terrifying. Used in India, Persia, and Carthage, their charges shattered formations and morale. The psychological impact often won battles before they began. Vulnerable to noise and fire, they were eventually countered, but for a time, nothing matched their shock and awe. The war elephant was the ultimate battlefield terror. The ballista was the ancient sniper rifle, a giant crossbow powered by twisted ropes, launching bolts or stones with deadly precision. Its torsion mechanism allowed for consistent long-range fire, devastating fortifications and enemy troops. Ballistas were used in sieges, field battles, and even on ships. They marked a shift from muscle power to mechanical force in warfare. The ballista set the stage for centuries of military engineering. Catapults were the heavy artillery of the ancient world, hurling stones, fire, and even diseased carcasses over walls. Using torsion or counterweights, they demonstrated a deep understanding of physics and engineering. Catapults made high walls vulnerable, changing siege warfare forever. Their evolution led to the trebuchet, capable of launching massive projectiles. These machines turned fortifications into targets. The boomerang wasn't just a toy, it was a deadly weapon, engineered for flight and impact. Used by ancient Australians, Egyptians, and others, non-returning boomerangs could break bones at over 100 meters. Their aerodynamic design showed a sophisticated grasp of physics. A simple piece of wood became a lethal long-range weapon. The Atlatl, or spear thrower, was a simple lever that doubled the speed and range of thrown darts. Used worldwide for tens of thousands of years, it transformed hunting and warfare. The Atlatl multiplied human power, making distant targets vulnerable. It's a direct ancestor of later projectile weapons. The repeating crossbow, or zhuge-nu, was ancient China's rapid-fire marvel. With a lever and magazine, it could unleash a volley of bolts in seconds. Though less powerful than single-shot crossbows, its rate of fire overwhelmed attackers. Perfect for defense and ambush, it foreshadowed modern automatic weapons. The zhuge-nu was centuries ahead of its time. Ancient naval warfare was brutal, with sabotage devices like the Claw of Archimedes and fire ships. The claw could lift and capsize enemy ships, turning city walls into offensive weapons. Fire ships, loaded with flammable materials, set entire fleets ablaze. These tactics created chaos and mass destruction at sea. They were forerunners of modern naval mines and torpedoes. Rome's Corvus boarding bridge changed naval warfare during the Punic Wars. Instead of ramming, Romans dropped the spiked bridge onto enemy ships, locking them together. This turned sea battles into infantry fights, where Roman discipline dominated. The Corvus helped Rome win crucial victories and control the Mediterranean. Though eventually abandoned, it was a game-changer. Sometimes innovation is about changing the rules. These 10 weapons blur the line between ancient and modern warfare. Their principles, incendiaries, shock tactics, mechanical precision, still shape today's battlefields. Ancient inventors were problem solvers, pushing technology to gain an edge. Their creativity laid the groundwork for centuries of military innovation. Which ancient weapon impressed you most? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more journeys into ancient genius. Across the ages, as weapons grew deadlier, so too did the quest for protection. In the earliest days, warriors wrapped themselves in boiled leather or layered linen, hoping to turn aside stone and bronze. Then came bronze breastplates and helmets, both a badge of status and a lifesaver at close quarters. As ironworking advanced, chainmail emerged, thousands of interlocking rings forming a flexible barrier against slashing blades and piercing arrows. It was a marvel of craftsmanship, worn by Celtic chieftains and Roman legionaries alike. But armor didn't stop there. From the gleaming muscle cuirasses of Greek hoplites to the imposing lamellar suits of Eastern cavalry, each new age brought new ways to shield the body. Plate armor, with its articulated steel plates, turned knights into walking fortresses, so effective that it forced armies to invent ever more powerful weapons just to break through. In legendary battles from Thermopylae to Agincourt, the difference between victory and defeat often came down to armor, who had the best, and who knew how to use it. Protection wasn't just about survival, it was about shaping the very tactics and outcomes of war. The evolution of ancient armor is a testament to human ingenuity under fire, always striving for the perfect balance between mobility and defense. Beneath the crashing waves of ancient naval battles lurked a secret weapon, a bronze-tipped predator poised to strike. The naval ram, or rostrum, was more than just a fearsome ornament bolted to a ship's prow. It was the spearhead of maritime warfare. Greek triremes, Roman quinqueremes, and Phoenician warships all sported these deadly prows, forged from solid bronze and designed to punch through the hulls of enemy vessels with devastating force. Naval commanders transformed their fleets into floating battering rams. Captains drilled their rowers in precision maneuvers. The Diekplus, a tactic where ships sliced through enemy lines, and the Periplus, a flanking move to strike exposed sides or sterns. Timing and teamwork were everything. Miss the mark, and your own ship could be crippled. Rams demanded courage, discipline, and relentless training. At full speed, rowers drove their ships straight at the enemy. A gamble that could mean glorious victory or catastrophic wreckage. Some navies even reinforced their hulls to withstand the shock, while others built lighter, faster ships to outmaneuver and evade. The naval ram didn't just sink ships, it shaped entire strategies. Battles like Salamis and Actium were won not by boarding, but by ramming and disabling the enemy. The age of the naval ram was a testament to the fusion of engineering and tactics, where the sea became a battlefield, and every wave carried the promise of destruction or triumph. While armies clashed on open fields and ships collided on stormy seas, another battlefield loomed, one built from stone, earth, and cunning. Ancient fortifications were more than towering walls or deep ditches. They were puzzles designed to frustrate, delay, and defeat would-be invaders. Moats, whether filled with water or left dry and spiked, were the first line of defense. More than obstacles, they forced attackers into bottlenecks, exposing them to volleys of arrows and boiling oil from above. Some defenders lined their moats with slippery clay or hidden pits, turning a simple crossing into a deadly gamble. Beyond the moats rose walls, massive, sloped, and sometimes double-layered. The Assyrians built walls thick enough to withstand battering rams, while the Greeks added towers for archers and catapults to rain destruction on siege engines. Gates, the most vulnerable points, were protected by murder holes, iron portcullises, and labyrinthine entryways designed to confuse and trap intruders. But true genius lay in the hidden traps, false doors that led to dead ends, collapsing floors triggered by unsuspecting feet, and secret tunnels for defenders to launch surprise attacks. In China, defenders of walled cities used fire oxen, cattle fitted with flammable bundles, to stampede through enemy lines at night. In the Middle East, elaborate water channels could be redirected to flood siege camps, or drown attackers tunneling beneath the walls. Every fortress was a challenge, a silent duel between the minds of attacker and defender. Through clever engineering and a touch of deception, ancient defenders proved that brains could triumph over brute force, leaving would-be conquerors stymied at the gates. Before the first arrow flew or the clash of swords rang out, ancient armies waged a different kind of battle, a war for the mind. Psychological warfare was as old as conflict itself, and its weapons were fear, uncertainty, and spectacle. Imagine the battlefield warriors painted with fierce patterns, their armor gleaming in unnatural hues, their faces hidden behind monstrous masks. The Celts, renowned for their wild appearance, often charged into battle naked, their bodies adorned with blue woad, howling war cries that echoed across the fields. The sound alone could unnerve even the bravest foe. Elsewhere, the Persians unleashed war elephants clad in armor, their tusks tipped with iron, turning them into living battering rams. The sight and thunderous roar of these beasts sent tremors through enemy ranks long before the elephants reached the front lines. The Romans, masters of discipline, advanced in perfect formation, shields locked, spears bristling, their silent, relentless march projecting invincibility. But deception was just as potent as spectacle. Commanders would light extra campfires at night to make their armies seem larger, or deploy wooden dummies to fool scouts. Some armies used false retreats, feigning panic to lure enemies into traps. In the chaos of battle, confusion could be deadlier than any blade. In every age, the greatest victories often began with a broken spirit. Through intimidating displays, cunning tricks, and the calculated spread of fear, ancient warriors proved that sometimes the sharpest weapon was the mind itself. As the ancient world neared its twilight, a new force began to reshape the battlefield. Not through muscle or metal alone, but through the raw power of chemistry. In the bustling cities of China, alchemists searching for the elixir of immortality stumbled upon a far more explosive secret: gunpowder. This smoky concoction of saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur would ignite an era of innovation and upheaval. The earliest uses were humble: fire arrows launched in arcs over city walls, simple bamboo tubes that spat sparks and noise. But these fire lances soon evolved, their blasts of flame and shrapnel terrifying horses and men alike. By the 10th century, Chinese inventors crafted the first true bombs and rockets, filling the night sky with shrieks and bursts of fire. The psychological effect was immediate and profound. Armies unaccustomed to thunder and flame often fled before a single casualty. Gunpowder's secret traveled west, carried along the Silk Road to the Middle East. There, engineers forged the first crude cannons, metal tubes belching smoke and iron, shattering the old certainties of stone walls and armored ranks. The Mongols, masters of mobility, adopted these weapons, spreading their use from Baghdad to the gates of Europe. Each crack of gunpowder signaled more than just destruction. It marked the fading of the ancient order. Fortresses that had stood for centuries were now vulnerable. Knights and warriors clad in bronze and iron faced a force that cared little for armor or lineage. The age of swords and shields was ending, as the world braced for a future shaped by fire and thunder. With the rise of gunpowder, the ingenuity of antiquity met its match. The ancient world's echoes grew faint, drowned by the roar of a new era, one where invention would forever change the face of war. While the thunder of gunpowder signaled a new era, the ancients had long wielded weapons far more insidious, tools that killed without blade or blast. Across continents and centuries, armies and assassins alike turned to the dark arts of biology and chemistry, harnessing nature's own poisons and plagues to tip the scales of war. On the battlefield, archers coated their arrowheads with deadly toxins, extracts from poisonous plants, venom from snakes, or even the putrid fluids of decaying corpses. A single scratch could mean a slow, agonizing death, spreading fear among enemy ranks. In India, warriors dipped blades in curare or aconite, while in Greece and Rome, historians record the use of hemlock, belladonna, and even scorpion venom. But the ingenuity didn't stop at arrows. Ancient Chinese tacticians filled pots with burning sulfur and arsenic, launching them over city walls to create choking clouds of toxic smoke. In the Middle East, defenders used quicklime, thrown or poured onto attackers, blinding and burning all it touched. Even the mighty Spartans were known to set traps with burning pitch and sulfur, turning the air itself into a weapon. Perhaps the most terrifying tactic was the deliberate use of disease. In the siege of Kaffa in 1346, besieging Mongols are said to have catapulted plague-infected corpses over city walls, unleashing a pestilence that would soon sweep across continents as the Black Death. While this event postdates antiquity, it echoes earlier accounts. In the ancient world, wells were poisoned, and rotting carcasses tossed into enemy camps, sowing sickness and chaos long after the battle ended. These invisible weapons blurred the lines between soldier and civilian, honor and horror. They reveal a truth as old as war itself, that victory often belongs not to the strongest sword, but to the most cunning mind. In the shadows of ancient battlefields, the silent killers of poison and pestilence left scars that outlasted empires. Reminders that in war, fear itself can be the deadliest weapon of all. Across the tapestry of ancient warfare, few sights inspired awe and terror quite like a line of master archers, bows drawn and eyes fixed on distant foes. These warriors, wielding finely crafted weapons, could rain death upon their enemies long before swords ever clashed. Among them, the English longbowmen stood as legends. Their bows, crafted from resilient yew wood and standing nearly as tall as a man, unleashed arrows with such force they could pierce armor at astonishing distances. At battles like Agincourt, A forest of arrows darkened the sky, decimating heavily armored knights and turning the tide of history. But the English were not alone in their mastery. Far to the east, Mongol horse archers reshaped warfare with the composite bow, a marvel of horn, wood and sinew. Compact yet powerful, these bows could be fired accurately from horseback even at full gallop. Under leaders like Genghis Khan, Mongol archers became the scourge of empires, striking swiftly and vanishing before retaliation could begin. Their tactics, feigned retreats, encirclements, and relentless volleys, left entire armies shattered and demoralized. What made these bows so feared was not just their range or power, but the skill and discipline of those who wielded them. Years of training forged archers into living weapons, capable of loosing a dozen arrows in the time it took a swordsman to draw his blade. Whether defending a castle or riding across open steppe, these legendary marksmen proved that in the hands of a master, a simple bow could decide the fate of kings and the course of civilizations. While the clash of weapons and the roar of battle capture our imagination, the true heartbeat of any ancient army pulsed far from the front lines. Behind every legendary victory lay a web of ingenuity that kept men armed, fed, and ready to fight. Logistics, the lifelines of war. Picture vast columns of soldiers winding across hostile terrain. Each step forward depended on a silent army of laborers, cooks, and craftsmen. Supply lines stretched for miles, ferrying carts laden with grain, dried meat, and amphorae of wine. Ancient generals knew that a hungry army was a defeated one. Field kitchens sprang up wherever soldiers paused, transforming raw ingredients into nourishing stews and bread. Innovations like portable ovens and collapsible cookware made it possible to feed thousands on the move. But logistics was more than just food. Blacksmiths set up mobile forges to repair weapons and armor. Engineers constructed pontoon bridges to cross rivers, or devised ingenious water purification systems using sand and charcoal. Quartermasters managed mountains of supplies, arrows, sandals, medical herbs, ensuring nothing ran out at a critical moment. Some armies, like the Romans, perfected the art of military organization. Their legions marched in tight order, carrying standardized packs and even their own collapsible tents. Detailed records tracked every ration and replacement, turning chaos into calculated precision. The unsung innovations of logistics, rolling carts, field hospitals, coded messages, rarely made it into the chronicles of epic battles. Yet without them, even the bravest warriors would falter. In the shadows of history, it was these quiet revolutions that kept armies moving, fighting, and ultimately, surviving. As armies grew and cities fortified themselves behind walls of stone, a new kind of battlefield innovation emerged: the engines of siege. Enter the towering behemoths of ancient warfare, the siege tower and the battering ram. These machines were not merely tools, they were symbols of relentless human ingenuity, built to conquer the unconquerable. The earliest battering rams were little more than heavy logs, swung by hand to pound at wooden gates. But as defenses evolved, so too did the rams. Engineers sheathed them in iron, mounted them on wheels, and covered them with protective roofs, often draped in wet hides to resist fire. Teams of soldiers, shielded beneath, would drive the ram against a city's gate in a thunderous rhythm, each strike chipping away at the defender's resolve. But breaches weren't made by brute force alone. Siege towers, wooden giants sometimes as tall as the walls they faced, rolled slowly forward on creaking wheels. Layered with hides and wet clay, they shrugged off flaming arrows and boiling oil. Inside, ladders and platforms allowed troops to climb in safety, ready to storm the ramparts the moment the tower's drawbridge crashed down onto the enemy wall. These machines demanded not just raw materials, but precise coordination. Armies had to assemble them under enemy fire, sometimes building them in pieces miles away and wheeling them into position at night. Defenders countered with moats, ditches and fire, but the arms race continued. Some towers carried catapults or ballistae, launching stones and bolts as they advanced. Rams grew larger, sometimes suspended in frames to swing with greater force. The clash at the city gates became a test of will and wit. Engineers versus engineers, each adapting to the other's latest invention. In the end, the siege tower and battering ram were more than weapons. They were the ancient world's answer to the impossible, forever changing the face of warfare and the fate of empires. The story of ancient military engineering is not just a chronicle of conquest, it's a tale of relentless innovation that echoes through the ages. From the ingenious siege towers and battering rams that shattered ancient walls, to the clever use of fire, water, and deception, these inventions laid the foundations for centuries of military technology to come. Many of the principles pioneered by ancient engineers still shape modern warfare and technology today. The concept of armored vehicles, born from the wheeled towers and shielded rams, lives on in the tanks and armored personnel carriers that roll across today's battlefields. The strategies of fortification, counter-siege tactics, and even psychological warfare remain at the heart of military planning. The ancient catapult and ballista paved the way for artillery, inspiring the mechanics behind modern cannons and missile launchers. The use of logistics, supply chains, and specialized tools to overcome obstacles is now a science in itself, vital to both military and civilian life. But perhaps the greatest legacy is the spirit of innovation itself. The ancient world's engineers were problem solvers, constantly adapting to new challenges with creativity and courage. Their inventions remind us that technology is not just about destruction, but about overcoming the impossible, about pushing the limits of what humans can achieve together. As we look at today's world of advanced weaponry, engineering marvels, and strategic thinking, we can still trace the fingerprints of those ancient geniuses. Their echoes are all around us, testaments to an enduring legacy that continues to shape the art and science of war and the progress of civilization itself.